Time's up, Admiral.
Here it comes.
Chevron 1, coded.
For my ally is the Force, and the powerful ally it is. Life creates it, makes it grow.
You failed your quest. I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Cry havoc, and let's set the dogs of war.
Chevron 2 is coded.
Conan, what is best in life? Crush your enemies, see them driven before you, to hear the lamentation of your women.
It's all in the reflexes.
Paul also said you're heavy into martial arts, Tai Chi and all that killer stuff.
I suppose we have to register you as a lethal weapon.
Chevron 3 encoded.
And somebody ought to belt you in the mouth. But I won't. The hell I will.
Chevron 4 encoded.
Do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
Chevron 5 encoded.
You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Chevron 6 encoded.
Not for while you can, monk boy.
Great Scott.
Back off, man. I'm a scientist.
You shall not pass!
I thought I'd die fighting side by side with an elf.
What about side by side with a friend?
A day may come when the courage of men fails, when we forsake our friends and break all bonds of fellowship. But it is not this day.
Chevron 7 is locked.
Hail and howdy, everybody. Welcome back to Saturday Night Drive-In, where we take a break from the nonsense and try to enjoy the movies we watch, have relatively civil and robust debates about stuff, and just have a good time. That's the bottom line. We want to have a good time, and I think we're going to have a good time. Jed, how are you? Ready to have a good time?
Oh, I'm very ready to have a good time. This movie is a hell of a lot of fun, and we definitely need that with the current state of entertainment, just to take a break. That's why I love this show, is we take a break from the nonsense like The Acolyte, Disney, Doctor Who, and we're just like, hey, this is a fun movie. We had a good time.
Fun movie, but many flaws.
Flaws.
There are many flaws in this movie, because this week we're going to discuss the Alexander Dumas classic, The Three Musketeers, but it's a Disney adaptation. 1993, when Disney was, frankly, at its peak. This is the middle of the Renaissance Disney. They are riding high, and at the time, this is a packed cast at the time. And but even though it's a packed cast, I will say some of those performances. All right, but all right, so Jed, this is your choice. So hail and howdy to the chat. First, of course, everybody, hail and howdy across both channels. We're happy to have you guys here on this busy Saturday afternoon into evening. We hope you guys are going to have a good time. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channels, although you're already here. You know what to do. You know what to do. We hope you guys have a good time live or on the replay. So, Jed, this is your choice this week. Set us up. This is what, the 1600s?
Yeah, I believe it's 1625. It's pretty early in the 1600s, as far as I'm aware. So a little bit earlier in French history than I'm familiar with. I studied a lot of, the American Revolution that tied into France at the time, and then, of course, the French Revolution. So the 1600s aren't really something that I'm very familiar with, at least when it comes to historical speaking. I did read this book when I was a teenager. I don't remember much about it. I could just, know the two different movie variations and realize, all right, what do they have in common? That's probably in the book. That's the extent of what I remember from the book, is compare and contrast. But yeah, this film, it's very Disney, as you said in the pre-show, very Disneyified, but in classic Disney style. This is good Disneyification. It's not modern stuff where we're like, oh, they made everyone gay, so Disneyified. It meant something else back then. And so, yeah, this movie's just a hell of a lot of fun. I can't say how accurate it is either to the history or the book.
Well,
I don't
it's
expect it to be very accurate.
It's definitely not historically accurate because Alexander Dumas is writing a fairy tale within reality, especially when you go farther down the timeline of these characters. He's trying to line things up with events, but it's slotted inside historical characters, in fact. So we accept that. And I myself, I don't think I've ever read the book. No, I haven't. There's not something they made us read, but I'm familiar with the story. I've seen the 70s adaptations. There's numerous adaptations of the Three Musketeers, even ones that weren't written by Alexander Dumas, as you well know. And they can go in many directions, or sometimes they can lock into getting pretty accurate. And I think as far as keeping to the general storyline, this is fairly accurate about what goes on. D'Artagnan wants to be a musketeer. He gets involved with the remaining musketeers who are on the run after Richelieu has disbanded them in order to set up an assassination plot. And then basically it's a race to stop the king from being assassinated. And that's about it. Now, I think what was this clocked in an hour, 45 minutes? I think this was clocked in at.
Yeah, it was pretty fair length.
Yeah, even though it's a tight, they still move pretty quickly.
The plot does have an issue of moving forward just for the plot's sake. You know, like D'Artagnan passing out in the middle of the road at the beginning of the third act and just happened to come across the spy he was looking for. The first person who came across him on a busy road from Paris to Calais was the person he was looking for.
Yeah, and the plot just seems kind of happen. We don't spend a lot of time with these characters. And these are fascinating characters, as in future events, you get a lot more to do with them. And thing is, I wish the movie had slowed down a little bit, honestly. Just slow down a little bit. Give us more time. Because I'm going to be honest, I don't really feel like Oliver Platt's Porthos or even Charlie Sheen's Aramis, they're not developed.
No, they're comic relief. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're great as comic relief. Like, they give good performances that make them endearing, but there's no depth to them beyond, oh, he takes death very seriously and he's religious in Aramis's case. And in Porthos's case, he's just a womanizer drunk. That's
Wine, women, and song. I mean, that's basically what it is. And telling tall tales. And the funny thing is, you watch all of them throughout all the combat, Porthos is basically invincible. Every time he's in a situation, I'm just going to kind of reverse it. Nothing touches me and never take a wound. He's the only one of them in the entire movie that never takes a hit.
It's true.
Because D'Artagnan takes all kinds of lumps throughout the movie.
Oh,
yeah. Athos, Kiefer Sutherland's Athos, he gets wounded a couple times.
Not anything extensive, but yeah, he does get some scratches.
Yeah, and Charlie Sheen's Aramis, he gets shot, gets saved by the cross. But he gets shot. That's
it's a broken rib still.
Yeah, and but Porthos, he just kind of glides through the movie. Always has a trick up his sleeve, whether it's the 3-part knife. He's got a bola he'll throw at you. He's got a gun with he's got a pistol that has a mini bayonet on it, and is always something.
It's so wild.
He's gonna hit that rope that is just in the right place to have somebody fall through. He's gonna kick the giant ogre dude in the dungeon into the spikes and then cut the rope. It's just always something. He doesn't have to work very hard. I mean, he's good at what he does.
Most plot armor.
Yes, he's good at what he does, but it's just always something there. And he's always got a one-liner.
Do you know who he reminds me of? Kind of a toned down version of Jack Sparrow. Like, Jack isn't actually good at anything he does. He just lucks into beating whole fleets.
There's that famous line from Dead Man's Chest. Do you think he's really that lucky, or does he plan it all out as he goes along? He's really that good, or does he plan it out as it goes along? And there's always that question, is Jack Sparrow just that damn good? Or is it literally he could just react so quickly to his environment that it looks nice superhero? I mean, so Porthos, though, he's super heroic. He's like, well, I've got this, I've got that. And wine, women, and song, like I said, is always
he's pretty much toned down Jack Sparrow in a lot of ways.
You're absolutely right. That is absolutely correct. It didn't occur to me, but you're spot on. Anyway, so run us through the beginning of this.
So the beginning starts out with Chris O'Donnell's version of D'Artagnan in a fight with Gerard, I believe his name is, a local guy who
Played
D'Artagnan
by
has.
Paul McGann, your
I
favorite.
didn't know that until I saw, like, I'd seen this movie as a kid. It'd been a long time, but as he's talking in that opening fight scene, I'm looking at him. He's like, he looks familiar, and then my eyes just got big. It's like, what the hell is Paul McGann doing?
Paul
in this
McGann
scene?
just screeching through this entire movie.
Well, do you know he plays two roles?
He was two roles.
Yeah, he's Rushford's right-hand man, who D'Artagnan in that, the ruins fight scene that he fought at the end and pushed off the cliff.
Oh, really? Well, he had makeup there. I couldn't tell. That was
it was a big mustache and whatnot.
Okay,
and,
I didn't look through it.
Face on like he did as the other guy. But yeah, they were both Paul McGann, and that's more traditional Paul McGann. This other guy who's well collected, thoughtful, and then there's this other one who's just. I don't know what he's doing with his voice.
Well,
I've seen Paul McGann in a lot of roles. None of them like this role. Like, he's great in the Hornblower movies, Doctor Who, which I believe was a year or two after this movie came out, and Aliens 3 even wasn't this crazy.
Well, that's kind of, I'm going to say now, that is the symptom of this movie, the primary symptom. Everybody is overacting. Every single person. And the only person who really pulls it off is Tim Curry. Because he's Tim goddamn Curry. He's the only one who can lay on the cheese and make it sound sly and smooth and make it work. Everybody else,
and really creepy in this movie.
Yeah. Well, Tim Curry is the best thing in this movie, as far as I'm concerned.
Oh yeah,
he's the best thing because he does bad guys so well, and his overacting, his cheesiness, his camp, his chewing the scenery, it just works because he understands how to be that character. Everybody else is just really over the top, and I know it's a thing, especially in older movies, but at least when you have certain productions and you have a European setting, it's one thing to have everybody have English accents, because that kind of was also a thing back then. Everybody had English accents. The American accents throughout this movie, it takes me out of the movie constantly. Chris O'Donnell, Kiefer Sutherland, Charlie Sheen, Oliver Platt.
They don't even try.
They're not even trying. Not even trying. The only two that I get away with it is, of course, that I accepted is Tim Curry, because Cardinal Richelieu doesn't necessarily have to be French, because the Cardinal could be from anywhere, even though he's got a French name. Doesn't matter. He could have been. That doesn't matter. And
there's
captain,
a justification for it, yeah.
And the dude who plays his chief lieutenant, I forget, Yorshmore, who that dude, he is a consummate bad guy actor. That's his shtick.
And his voice is so raspy that you can't tell an accent in there.
And you don't care because he's bad guy.
Accentless. No, that's what I mean. Like, he's a voice that doesn't need an accent in any state, because he could be any accent. Like, his voice is so raspy that it's kind of its own thing.
Exactly. And it's just bad guy, and you're fine. But everybody else, and I'm even surprised that Gabrielle Anwar, who played Queen Anne, she could do accents. She's done accents her entire career. I'm surprised she didn't do an accent, even though, I mean, she's Austrian, but her character's supposed to be Austrian. But Gabrielle Anwar is very good at accents throughout her career. So I'm surprised she didn't do it. So I'm really surprised that nobody even tried. Now, I don't expect Kiefer Sutherland to do an accent. He's never done an accent in his entire career. It's always, I'm Kiefer Sutherland. This is my accent.
Did you see his Pompeii movie?
No.
It's so bad with the guy who played Jon Snow in Game of Thrones.
Kit
Harington. That Pompeii movie is wild. But yeah, he plays the Roman leader of Pompeii. Kiefer Sutherland does, and it's so over the top. It's I don't know the best way to describe his role in that movie, but he's trying to be a megalomaniac, kind of Nero-esque, but it's Kiefer Sutherland, so it's just that one note that Kiefer Sutherland can do at this point in his career. So and I'm saying, we talk about Oliver Platt. It's just Oliver Platt, and Charlie Sheen is doing a version of Charlie Sheen, a more subtle, not so much tiger blood and all that shit. But I would say out of all of them, Charlie Sheen's delivery is the smoothest with the American accent, because he's pacing his lines, he's not rushing his dialogue, and he's very on point. And his whole demeanor in the movie is very, I guess the best way, he just kind of glides through the movie. He kind of just is there, he delivers it. And I'll come back to frankly, Charlie Sheen's performance is one of the better performances in the movie for me,
because not only that, because I guess I'll bring him up now. Out of everybody, he's one of the only people that could do choreography.
Yeah.
His fencing was on point, and he had the proper rhythm. It looked organic. It looked like he'd taken the time to practice and train. Just about everybody else is just swinging that sword.
Especially Kiefer Sutherland. I saw them do a lot of close-ups on him. He was not gonna put any effort in. I don't know fencing choreography. I could just tell. When you do an excessive amount of close-ups in a fight scene, you can kind of tell the person didn't try.
One day we're gonna watch Scaramouche.
Okay.
And that movie is an art of fencing because you've got guys who trained up for it and then actual fencers who were really good in it. That when I went to fencing camp one time, that was the movie they showed us to show this is what good choreography fencing looks like. That's a brilliant movie. I love that movie. And that's about this time. It's a little after. Actually, no, I'm sorry. It's about another 100 years. It's right after the American Revolution, like another 150 years. It's true because the French Revolution it's about to happen, but because they're gearing up to it. Either way, that's a brilliant movie for fencing. So one day we're going to watch that. It's one of my favorites. I got it right over there. It's a fantastic movie, but for the most part, the choreography in this movie, I give it about a C plus, because it's just a lot of sword swinging, like you said, close-ups, a lot of yelling and screaming and hiding it in crowds when there's combat. And I mean, the next closest one is Chris O'Donnell. He at least tried. He tried. And Rocher, he tried too. He's had other movies where he's done choreography, so he clearly did that. But everybody else just kind of, Oliver Platt doesn't really do choreography. He's just swinging around, pulling another weapon. So it loses points on that, but it doesn't make it any less fun because it's a lot of it are set pieces. So we'll how do you want to go about doing this? I'm not sure how to go through this right now.
I don't know, because the plot is so thin that it's virtually not worth saying. Everyone just kind of happens to be at the right place at the right time to move forward. The only real decision that I saw were the three Musketeers going to rescue D'Artagnan. Like that was a character decision that they made to do, and I can see that. That's great. Every other one, it's just like, new information. New information. And yeah, there's a big exposition problem in this movie. As much as I love Paul McGann, he started out giving D'Artagnan's father's backstory like right off the bat, and it comes off as real clunky. This movie is so much fun because of the performances, but its script is just non-existent.
It's basically here are the characters, they're in the scene, and little dialogue, action set piece, a little bit of dialogue, action set piece. And here's one glaring problem that I have in terms of consistency. We know in the beginning of the movie when Richelieu disbands the Musketeers and he demands all of them turn over their weapons and burn their tunics. How do they all have their tunics in hiding at the end of the movie? It's only been a few days. It's only been at best it's been a week from the beginning to the end, considering travel time from, let's say, Paris to Calais. On horseback. It's
it can't be that much.
I mean, did they have backup tunics and backup?
Maybe.
I mean, I can understand maybe that somebody squirreled away the swords.
Yeah, the swords make total sense.
That they managed to get their hands on, but they literally were burning all their tunics. They had to do that. Why are there where the other tunics come from?
Maybe the burning was more symbolic. I mean, I could see them having multiple uniforms. Every military, you have one or two spare. So
I guess
I could see enough of a justification, but it's still like.
But it jumped out at me today or yesterday when I was watching, because you don't notice those things when you're watching it 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and just watching it and enjoying it. But now to actually give it a legitimate objective review, it's little inconsistency. They didn't have to burn the tunics. Giving up, I think they could have done without burning the tunics and had that little slight inconsistency for them, because that means every single Musketeer still had a tunic when they show up in the third act. It just jumped out at me because I've seen this movie a number of times, and I'm watching them burn tunics, and I'm waiting for that third act moment, which is brilliant. The third act for the final battle, it's a brilliant set piece. It's well set up, well played production value, and it looks great. But I found myself wondering, wait a minute, they're all going to come rushing in later wearing their tunics. Why? They're burning them. All right. I guess I have to just put it aside.
Yeah, I do agree with you. It's noticeable. There are justifications for it, but it's not something
it takes
that
headcanon.
Exactly. It takes headcanon. And that's what a lot of this movie is, just things just sort of happen and scenes aren't connected logically. And that does bother me. I still grin through this entire film, loving it, but
I relaxed watching this. And my criticisms are from a production standpoint. It's not really about the story, because the story is a simple story for king and country, for loyalty, for brotherhood, protecting people. A good man, a young King Louis there, wants to do good, but he doesn't have enough power to do good. So those who are corrupt and more powerful are trying to take his throne from him and kill him. It's a very simple story. And frankly, out of all of this, the following stories are much more interesting than this one. This basic one is kind of just a simple setup. But it introduces these characters. I would say, honestly, the Three Musketeers is better as an introduction to Dumas' world that he plays in than anything. Because it's fun. It's swashbuckling is what it is. This is swashbuckling. You want to sit back, you want to watch your heroes save the day, and that's what this is. These are heroes who are going to find a way to come out on top. Because like you said, I don't know if there was an assassination attempt on, what is this, Louis the 15th? I think it's Louis the 15th. Maybe.
There's so many Louis.
Yeah, I think it's Louis 15th. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if there was an assassination attempt in the period of time on him, but it doesn't matter because it's fantastical. Because this kind of thing wouldn't happen with men running across the countryside being chased by soldiers of the cardinal trying to stop a plot to and now, of course, there were secret treaties. This is Renaissance Europe. That shit's happening all the time, and people are being married off, and deals are being made by Max. That's real. But a cardinal, now see that's where you have to take a step away from the believability of history to the actual thing. The church would never allow one of their princes, because cardinals are princes of the church, to sit on a throne.
Oh, yeah. No, they would have excommunicated or at least removed him from the order, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
But that's a lot of what doesn't make sense for me is the justification of the, the Duke of Buckingham, that treaty doesn't seem like it's as big of a deal. Like the cardinal has to prove he's capable to get this treaty signed. Buckingham won't sign it unless he kills the King of France. Well, if he's killing the King of France, why does he need Buckingham? He's already got his Cardinal's Guard, which are basically the city guard. There's hundreds and hundreds of them. It's practically an army on his own.
But it's only enough to lock down the city. It's not enough to lock down.
Once you have the throne and you use that justification, like he said, oh, the Musketeers have come to kill their king, and he's still manipulating everyone. If England came in and sided with him, the local people are not going to like that. In fact, a treaty with Buckingham is one of the worst things he could have done strategy-wise.
Well, the problem here is that, and this is where this movie fails a little bit in the world building, it makes it seem as though France has no standing army. When
it does.
It does, because
that's what I mean is, it makes it seem that way.
Because they this is where we talk about Disneyfication. Disneyfication back then is harmless, but it's not. When we talk about Disneyfication, it's about inaccuracies because they leave shit out.
They just simplify till there's no texture.
So that you can grasp the situation, but not think too hard and still enjoy what you're watching. Now, I'm a guy who plays grand strategy games, and one of my favorite ones is Crusader Kings 3, which takes basically place in Europe and across the European, Asian continents. And what you have there, when you micromanage and build your empire, your kingdom, stuff like that, you understand that there is the central army built around the crown. The crown controls whatever its counties and that with its titles. Because remember, just because you're king, you're not just king. If you're king of your country, you have other titles. You're a duke of this and a count of this, or a earl of that, depending on England, France, Spain, Italy, that kind of stuff. and that comes with the ability to raise levies and garrison troops. But you have only your part. When you want to make another army, when you want to make a grand army, you require your vassals. If your dukes, your marquises, your stuff like that, you require them to then send part of their household, their garrisons, their levies to build your army. So France, that's how all these countries made their armies back in the day. They would raise levies from the different vassals, and the vassals get to keep their own personal section. They always have to contribute part to the grand army of the country. And the digification of this makes it sound like when they're saying, "Oh, we need the Musketeers to go to the front lines for coming war with England." What? What? It's digification where they've simplified it down to make you think that that's how they make an army back then. That's not how it works.
There's not enough Musketeers to make that a reasonable thing to do. If you want to, take some, just like you're saying, take some of the Musketeers, put them in the regular army, there's a justification for that. But
and if you did that, they're officers. These aren't infantry. These are captains. These are lieutenants. These are commanders. These are men who are highly trained. These are the Secret Service of the French royal family back then, who are the best of the best, and they have education. They have knowledge. They're not some dude who's carrying a halberd, a spear, or a rifle who's going to march up there and probably die in the first wave of exchange. This is somebody who's commanding. So you would take those Musketeers and you would disperse them to command things. And even then, you wouldn't really want to do that because every levy that comes from every section has commanders, has their own commanders, their own chain of command who the soldiers know and understand. You can't just drop somebody in and say, "Oh, you're in command now." That's not how it works. So, but it's dissification, but it's harmless. But its harmlessness makes it simplistic. And that's, I think, what we're talking about with this movie. When you have the simplicity of these three dudes, the three Musketeers, Aramis, Arthos, and I just said it out of order. Porthos.
Athos, Porthos, and Aramis.
Aramis, yeah. As you say it out of order, you can't get it right. That these three dudes are somehow gonna rally the country all on their own and uncover. It's fantastical. But that's what you have to understand. It is fantastical.
Well, and it also kind of makes the world seem small. That's something that bothers me a lot, is when, even just in a period piece like this, or even a, something that takes place on Earth, not even in a fantasy or sci-fi setting, is when you make the world seem small by everybody knows everyone. Oh, just happens that Chris O'Donnell's D'Artagnan decides to be a musketeer right when all this is happening, and the bad guy's right-hand man is the one who killed his dad. And then, the spy the Cardinal uses is Athos's ex-wife, who he thinks is dead. It's like everyone's related and connected to everyone. Everyone knows D'Artagnan's dad. And it just makes the world seem so small.
And even though, remember, France, it's not a large country.
No.
This is Europe. Nothing is large. Everything, the travel distances really are small. But they, as I said, because of the pacing of the movie, things happen too quickly. When Richelieu says, "Hunt them all down, mercenaries," man, the word got out quick. That got out fast. They were waiting on that fort to fire cannons at them. How did they know it was them?
Yeah.
How did they know it was them? That spyglass. Even so, there's not like there was wanted posters circulating.
No, and it's not like they're wearing their musketeer uniforms.
No, they had their tunics in their satchels. They were wearing their tunics, and you can't identify theirs. And yes, they have musketeer swords. Their rapiers are musketeer class.
You need to get a little bit closer.
Yeah, you can't see it. So how did they know it was him? So there's a lot of, you just gotta go with it.
Yeah. Well, and like the musketeers staying behind to cover D'Artagnan's escape to get to Calais first, and then they beat him to Calais because he passes out and gets picked up by the spy.
And man, Kiefer Sutherland just getting there right in time to stop Rebecca de Mornay from escaping. Oof.
Oh,
that's timing.
I mentioned it in the pre-show, but Kiefer Sutherland's story of, there's this guy who's totally not me, who had an ex-wife who he loved her so much, but then he found out that she had a fleur-de-lis, which meant she's been sentenced to death for murder, and he got all mad.
Jed, where was it? Where was it?
It was on her shoulder, this fleur-de-lis, and D'Artagnan just accidentally touches her shoulder and reveals it. It's
Yeah,
not like Kiefer would have done that. You know, the classic thing of when you're making out with a girl in a movie like this, you
yeah.
start by removing the strap from her shoulder. It's right there.
And,
It's not like she got branded, I don't know, in the small of her back.
these are the French. This is the French. They're effing all the time. There's
Oh,
naked
yeah.
bodies everywhere. I mean, England, they're a little more proper. In France,
Yeah.
fornication is a day that ends in Y. It's always happening. Because that's the thing. I'm sitting here and I'm watching Anne be Gabrielle Anwar's Queen Anne being all proper with her maids. And then I'm thinking, okay, they're being proper here. They don't want to have affairs. And then we're in the tavern. Oh, yep, they're just those barmaids, those wenching. And that's the thing. That we're making fun of this because it's easy to make fun of because it's Disney-fied. But I'm watching this, I'm thinking, so you got Porthos giving wenching lessons to D'Artagnan, and he makes out with the one chick, and he's trying to decide how to do it, and then Athos, Aramis says to the other one, "No, listen, I'm gonna woo you." And he woos her, and then she kisses him. And my thought was, man, she just kissed Porthos, and now she's kissing him with his mouth on it. It's like, man, ew, ew. I mean, we know where Porthos's mouth has been. It's been a lot of places, and so has Aramis's, because he's also wooing women left and right. There's a lot of sexualization. In this for a 93 Disney movie, a lot of sexualization going on.
Well, it is the French.
It is the French, I guess. Yeah, I'll give them that. And everybody's getting it on. Everybody's jumping on everybody. And it's just funny though. But it's lighthearted. Let's talk. We've been a little. I don't want to say negative. We've been critical. Let's talk the lightheartedness of this. So I mean, it's a lighthearted adventure. We have men being men, heroes being heroes, and I really do appreciate the whole loyalty aspect. All for one, one for all. It's a positive message that has stood the test of time. That phrase has lasted for a couple centuries now.
Oh yeah, people who have never seen the movies or read the books know that phrase.
Yeah, even the Japanese adapted My Hero Academia. The two most powerful quirks in that are all for one and one for all. And they separate the meanings, but it's a powerful, meaningful phrase that encourages camaraderie, brotherhood. And that's what I appreciate these messages, the positive messages of this movie: brotherhood and loyalty. And even though I found it really interesting how quickly they forgive D'Artagnan for being a dick, it's like, oh, okay, you can come along. It's fine. We're gonna bro it out.
I hate how he runs across the only 3 active Musketeers
I don't know how
away
accurate
and
that
gets
is in
in
the book.
duels with them. It happens in both movies that I've
Okay.
seen, so I'm guessing it's in the book. I don't remember.
Yeah,
But
I
that
don't know how
bothers me
accurate that
so
is.
much. He's running through a city and happens to get in duels with just the exact 3 right people. Just have him get in a duel with Athos, and the other 2 show up as his second.
And now here's a problem with Chris O'Donnell's portrayal of D'Artagnan in this movie in general. D'Artagnan's supposed to be a prodigy. He's supposed to be, in the end, he's like the Lancelot of the Musketeers. He's the best of them as the time moves forward. He never really
starts
wins
out pretty good.
He starts good, but he steadily starts to lose more and more as the movie goes on. He can't take out the assassin in the final battle. He kind of gets dinged up throughout the whole movie. And then in his final duel, he needs a lady's maid to give him the save there. And I don't appreciate that because D'Artagnan, as I said, he's supposed to be the best of the best. He's like the prodigy.
I actually really like it because at the beginning of the movie, he could come across as, if this movie came out today and was gender swap, we'd call him a Mary Sue at the beginning of the movie, where he's just too good at everything. And I get that he was trained by his dad and whatnot, so he has a very good foundation.
Yeah.
But then he gets into the real world and he gets humbled a little bit. Then he trains with the 3 Musketeers. And then in the sequels, like you're saying, I can totally see him being the best of the best. He has a great foundation that his dad gave him. But he still, struggles. He's still coming across real duelists who have actually fought and killed. Like Rushford kicking the ass out of him, totally there for it. Even him just struggling in different fights because the fight with the assassin isn't a traditional fight that he's familiar with. And the captain of the Cardinals Guard that he fights, who's also Paul McGann, that one he does win.
He wins
but
that
he does
one.
struggle a
Yeah.
little bit. So I feel like it's a good amount. Like it's
I
showing
just
his
don't
great
like that
foundation.
final hit on Rushford. I just don't like that where she pushes the rapier into his hand and he gets it. That just I don't know how
It could have
accurate that
been
is.
done
Yeah.
better, but him being bested by Rushford, at
That's
least to that
fine.
extent,
Struggling.
makes sense because Rushford's the one who killed his dad, and he was
Yeah.
trained by his dad to a certain extent.
No, see that fight, I'm okay with Rushford dominating, winning, and him getting a lucky hit to win. That's not my problem. Is the fact that she pushes the rapier into his hand. He's done right there. It's just something about that as our hero.
It's still better than the 2014 version where Rushford throws his sword up in the air so high he forgets how far it went, and then D'Artagnan just looks up in time to grab it, knock his sword out of the way, and stab him.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I threw it too high in the air. I forgot.
I mean,
where it was.
Rushford shows overconfident this one by taunting. He's gonna switch to a double-handed downward thrust grip, and I keep hitting my microphone. That's great cinematography right there. That's great character work. He's overconfident. He's got it, and then you get that last lucky hit in. That's fine. I just don't like the whole pushing of the sword. I didn't like that. That just. I want my hero to get out.
I think they just wanted a justification for her to be in the movie.
I want our
She's
heroes,
barely in.
and I want our heroes to scramble and get out of it on their own. That's something I always look for. I want a hero, even in their darkest moment, to have that hero moment, that trump card moment where they grab that thinnest threads of possibility, fate changing moment, and get out themselves. I mean, you can get an assist. I just don't like the way that assist happened. It doesn't sit right with me, just from a visual perspective. Just because I want a good duel, and the duel had been going well up until that point. And it's like, but either way, that's just my small criticism of that. But otherwise, our heroes are supposed to be untouchable, and it makes you go because that's what makes it fun for the ride. I think you could agree on that. That's what makes the ride fun when they're just going through everything. But I'm trying to be positive, but I keep coming back to the negatives that are bugging me.
It makes sense with this film.
Yeah.
It is not a deep film. It's not even a really well-written film. I think the performances and just the general music atmosphere is what makes it so much fun, but I don't think the script is good. So the fact that we keep coming back to criticism, I don't think is a bad thing. Subjectively, I absolutely adore this film, but since this is a review, I like to show the objective side of things. So yeah, I don't think there's
I mean, let's talk about Lady de Winter. Everything with her in this. Rebecca Mornay, this is her peak hotness at this moment. Rebecca Mornay, beautiful woman. And Disney showing us that cleavage. Good job, Disney.
There's a lot of cleavage in this movie.
Good job, Disney. And that's all her. I mean, Rebecca Mornay, she that was all her. That's real. But there's a stiffness to all the Lady de Winter scenes. There's a stiffness. And Rebecca Mornay, who's a good actress in other realms, I would say, honestly, throughout all this, her performance is kind of the weakest.
It's practically non-existent. Yeah. She makes a lot of weird decisions with her performance and just writing wise. I'm not a fan of most of her scenes and her backstory. I really don't like her backstory. But the two scenes of her that I love is in the prison cell with Kiefer Sutherland's Athos and her death scene. Like, that's actually saying something interesting. The whole he's still going to let her die even after all this, even, how much he cares about her and feels like he's betrayed her. And there's a lot of interesting character meat there. I feel like her performance makes sense in those scenes.
In other adaptations, there's some to it. I swear to God, I think I remember from the 70s adaptation, D'Artagnan actually does her, if I remember that adaptation.
It wouldn't surprise me.
There is an affair, and when he's in her clutches, he does sleep with her. I think I remember that in 70s adaptation. I haven't seen that one in 40 years, I think. It's been a long ass time since I saw. Maybe 35 years. Maybe 35 years. It was like late 80s, early 90s when I saw that adaptation, and it was on TV, so I just watched it. And then I rented the Four Musketeers, which was kind of a fabrication. Didn't really happen, but the briskness. I think the worst scene for me is that she's seducing him, D'Artagnan, in this one, and then decides to pull out her dagger from her hair and try to kill. Now that's a good moment where yes, he overpowers her, and she has to call for help.
Yeah,
But
she should have used poison. That made more sense for her
yeah,
character. She was already giving him a drink. Like, of course, she wanted to take care of him, be all protective and whatnot, and have a little
yeah.
plaything. But as soon as she finds out who he is and what he's doing, the
But
weapon of choice for a woman like her in high society would have been
poison,
poison,
not to try and gank him in the throes of attempted passion,
and
and
in the
also
most obvious way possible.
yeah, and at the same time, man, D'Artagnan. Hi, I'm D'Artagnan. I'm gonna be a musketeer, and I'm hunting for a traitor.
He's so
Dude,
dumb in this
dude.
movie.
And that's the thing. D'Artagnan's not stupid as a character in the traditional portrayal of his character. He's not an idiot. But in this one, the Chris O'Donnell's fresh facedness is a little too much for me.
I agree.
The constant.
I don't know why in the 90s they felt like he was going to be some big hotshot because they tried to put him in everything back then.
I mean, he eventually found his place in NCIS Los Angeles, and he had that show ran forever. That's one of those. It just he got a lot of mileage out of that show. But this Batman and Robin, Batman Forever is like, yeah, he doesn't have a movie presence. That's the thing. He has a TV presence.
Yeah,
he doesn't have a movie presence, and that was, and that's why that's why he's, to me, in the end, he was a weak casting as D'Artagnan. But he was the thing. This is 93. He's coming off Batman Forever, Batman and Robin, or I don't think Batman and Robin happened yet, but he's coming off Batman Forever, coming off a couple other movies, and he was one of those young hot actors that they were pushing. And then he transitioned to television in following decade. But I mean, what else can we really say here? I mean, want to talk about just the final action set piece, which is glorious. All the Musketeers rushing against the Cardinals troops. That's glorious. That's glorious. I love it. It's the highlight of the movie. But that's what this movie is. Dialogue, action set piece. Dialogue, action set piece. And you just enjoy the ride.
Yeah.
Just enjoy the ride.
It's very much a turn your brain off type movie. And it's great as that. It very much does a good job at being background entertainment. Yeah, it's an incredibly fun movie.
I was watching it while playing Final Fantasy 14. That's what I was doing because I don't have to pay that close attention, and I've seen it before. So it's not like I know it was as much. I remembered it as pretty much as I remembered it pretty well. But of course, I was during Q as the 14, so I actually was watching. But I could do other things while watching it. It's not a focus so hard. I gotta watch this facial expression here. I gotta watch this piece of dialogue here. I'm gonna memorize this exchange because this is an epic exchange between two fantastic actors. It's not that, but it's a fun little harmless ride. And it's something you can show your kids. It's a fun movie you can show your kids, and in the classic Disney sense, not worry about indoctrination, but actually have fun family entertainment. Because that's what this is, a family version of this.
Absolutely.
A very family version. And they save the day and everybody gets their desires. And I think that final scene, though, where Paul McGann and his brothers come up, D'Artagnan, and then it's, the entire Musketeer Corps chases them down. What? Come on.
It's so wild. With Porthos be like, we also protect each other.
Yeah, getting a little gay there. I don't know, whatever.
You're getting a little gay there. And yeah, I feel like Paul McGann, he's proven himself to be a coward throughout the entire movie, and now D'Artagnan is a musketeer, fresh from his ceremony.
He's got the tunic on. He's got the tunic on.
He just saw the King of France, and you're gonna, bother him now. I feel like he's too dumb for that.
They ran that joke way too far into the ground.
Oh, absolutely.
After the initial early chase, that one should have been gone. Even when he I would have accepted the taunting when he's going to get decapitated. I could accept him taunting him there, but that should have been the last we saw of Paul McGann's character. That should have been it.
Don't lose your head.
Oh God. And you say that, I think of Highlander. Don't lose your Queen's Highlander. Don't lose your head. Don't lose your heart. So okay, I'm not gonna do that. Anyway, I got anything else to say on this? Because I'm all out. I got nothing left.
Not particularly. Like, we've beaten into the ground. This is an incredibly thin film. The plot moves forward for plot's sake, and there's a lot of stuff that is just too wild to believe. Like the tunnels below and the secret dungeon is kind of wild beneath.
Yeah,
the
it's not like
palace.
it's Versailles and
Yeah.
it's huge, a huge mansion that could have another shit. This is still just Paris.
Yeah.
And
There's just a lot of weird things. I think the film is entirely carried by its cast. Even the ones who aren't giving, traditionally good performances, they're
Yeah.
very entertaining performances.
yes,
And
I'll give
so
you that.
they're very fun. Like Porthos doesn't make any sense. He has no depth, but the actor is having so much fun, and that translates to the audience. We see him having fun, so we want to have fun. So I absolutely enjoyed this film, but it was not written by someone who's familiar with a lot of the, basic storytelling principles.
There's one line from Porthos that kind of makes me wonder because I don't know if there was that kind of contact that far. I mean, I know that I know that Europe had gotten all the way to Japan. For him to say the Tsarina of Tokyo, what?
That was a weird line.
That's a weird one. I can understand.
He's clearly
Empress.
making fun of
I can understand Queen of
making it
America.
all up.
I can understand that because the French maybe don't know what's going on over in America because their colonies have been reduced. Fine, but the Tsarina of Tokyo, that one.
Well,
I know
that's very early on in America. Like Jamestown would have only just been established.
Yeah, so it's those. Tighten up that writing. Anyway, so Jed, it's your week. You get to score it first.
Okay, so yeah, like I said, this film is a whole hell of a lot of fun. Absolutely recommend it to people.
Yeah.
If I were being subjective, I would give this a 9, probably maybe an 8. Like that's how much I love this film. Even with my current lens, like a lot of the movies that I loved as a kid, I've watched now with a critical eye, and that critical eye has ruined my enjoyment of it to a certain extent. But that didn't happen on this one. I still saw all the critical flaws in it, but I still had a blast. And those writing problems are substantial. And performance-wise, there are substantial issues with this film. So I don't think I can, in good conscience, give this anything above a 5 out of 10.
Okay, I'm kind of right there with you. While a fun ride and a legitimate, enjoyable, friendly movie that you could just sit down, relax, and just enjoy that very thin, lighthearted ride, the overacting is just so there in my face. Everybody's just giving too much in every line. Little miscast. The American accents. At least do British accents. At least do British accents. That's acceptable for French characters. We see it all the time in period pieces. We can accept that. But everybody talking with an American accent is just it's Disneyfication. The ups and downs of the choreography get to me because you have Charlie Sheen, as I said, who clearly spent some time working on it. He was very smooth and graceful in all his movements, clearly practiced. But then Kiefer Sutherland is just charging in and just it all over it. But it's still fun. Our criticisms are objective criticisms. We don't hate the movie, but we have to be fair. We have to be fair. It has a little bit of pacing problem. The story is not as deep as it could be. Again, I haven't read the book, but there is more story to this and a lot of setup for future events. But it's still a fun ride. You can watch it with your kids. You can turn it on background. It's a good movie. I do recommend it. But like Jed said, I can't give it much more than a 6 out of 10. I can't do it because it's not something that I want to hold up there and say, oh man, this is must watch. But next week it's my pick, and I was teasing Jed that he's gonna understand my logic in this. Next week we're going to watch the 1998 adaptation of The Man in the Iron Mask. We are going to stick with Alexander Dumas characters. And now that movie, you thought this is a cast? Listen to this cast, Jed. Jeremy Irons, Gabriel Byrne, John Malkovich, Gerard Depardieu, and they've got a young Leonardo DiCaprio as Louis and Philip. So that's cast.
I have seen this film before.
Okay,
so
you have seen
it.
one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. So this is a serious adaptation where this movie has meat on its bones. So I've always enjoyed this movie. It's one of the few Leonardo DiCaprio movies I actually like because I despise him. I hate Leo. I hate him ever since Growing Pains. I've hated Leonardo DiCaprio.
Oh,
that's how far back
Don't tell me that. Catch Me If You Can's on my list to do soon. I love that film.
I can stomach him, but I I have some movies I like a lot of them, and I like. Hey, he does a great retard in Gilbert Grape. Okay, great retard. But anyway, so next week, The Man in the Iron Mask. I felt it was fitting to go. It just felt, hey, you know what? Let's go down the line. Let's go down the line. And
we've already
watch
done
this.
Count of Monte Cristo. So
Yeah. But
we've
let's
got a
finish
lot of Alexander Dumas.
Let's finish up the story of these characters. And and I really do like the story of Man in the Iron Mask. I think that's a more in the dirt movie with the grittiness, and that we want to talk about good character work in that one. We get all the character work we want out of the Musketeers in that one. Anyway, so there we go. We'll see you guys next week for another episode of Saturday Night Drive-In. Thank you one and all for being here across both the channels. As always, we appreciate each and every one of you. So hit that like button, help us out in the algorithm. Subscribe to the channels if you are new here, and we will see you guys next week. Until then, take it easy. Have a good night or day.